Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be solving this trigonometric equation here, so let's dive in. All right, so here it says that cosine of x plus pi over 4 is equal to root 2 over 2. So recall that root 2 over 2 is actually the same thing as 1 over root 2. The reason it's not just written as 1 over root 2 is because it's considered bad form to have a radical sign in our denominator. However, the reason I am writing it this way, even though it is bad form, is because it's going to be easier for us to figure out how to solve it using the special triangles if we think of it in this way, because this is its raw form. If we draw the pi over 4, pi over 4, pi over 2 special right triangle here, we can recall that we have 1, 1, root 2 as the parent one. And so therefore, cosine of pi over 4 is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse, which is 1 over root 2, which is root 2 over 2. Okay, so I'm going to write that down, that cosine pi over 4 is equal to 1 over root 2. Now, let's think about every single number that it could possibly be within that first cycle. So between 0 and 2 pi. Are there any other possibilities? Well, let's draw our grid and check, because generally there are going to be 2 in a lot of these cases. Not always, though. Sometimes there could be even more. So here we have our cast rule. So just as a reminder, what does this mean? It means that in quadrant 1, all three of the trig ratios, sine, cosine, and tangent, are positive. In the second quadrant, right here, only sine is positive. Over here, only tan is positive. And over here, only cosine is positive. And as you can probably see from our answer here, notice that, we're trying to figure out when this is equal to root 2 over 2, aka 1 over root 2. And so therefore, since that's positive, we only need to think about these two quadrants over here. We can completely disregard quadrant 2 and 3 because cosine would be negative there, and so we can't possibly get, a positive answer for either of those. Good. Okay, so there we go. So one answer is pi over 4. And then another answer would be negative pi over 4, or we could go all the way around, right? Because this is 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2. We could also go all the way around and say, well, this is the same as 2 pi minus pi over 4. So another way we could write that would be to say that, 8 pi over 4 minus pi over 4 is 7 pi over 4. So we could also say this is 7 pi over 4 if we are wanting to keep it in the first cycle, which we probably do. So actually, I will say that this is just 7 pi over 4, which is going to be our same thing, but going around all this way would be 7 pi over 4. And then we're just left with, for this little part here, for the related acute angle, pi over 4. So therefore, in our first cycle, we found out that 7 pi over 4 and pi over 4 are going to give us 1 over root 2, which again is the same as root 2 over 2, which I should write because that is the proper form. But we can think of it, for all intents and purposes, we can think of it as 1 over root 2. Okay, so now how do we solve the rest of this? Because notice here we have cosine x plus pi over 4 is equal to 1 over root 2. And so we need to basically figure out where x plus pi over 4 is equal to pi over 4, and also where x plus pi over 4 is equal to 7 pi over 4. So we need to solve both of those. So the first one, if we subtract pi over 4 from both sides, we get that x is 0 is one option. And then for this one here, we would get x is equal to 6 pi over 4, which is equal to 3 pi over 2. And so those are our two answers, that from 0 to 2 pi, the answers are 0 and 3 pi over 2. And so if we were restricted to that domain, those would just be our answers, and that would be the end of that. However, in this case, they didn't give us a specific domain to work with. And keep in mind that if we add 2 pi to either of these, if we subtract 2 pi from either of these, then that would also give us a valid answer. Or even if we did that multiple times, we went backwards 5 cycles, forward 2, backward 10, forward 8, whatever it is, it's still going to give us those same places, right? Those central arms there are still going to be in the same spots. And so we need to account for that by adding 2 pi k to both of these answers, where k is just any integer, right? K just represents how many cycles forward, or if k is negative, how many cycles backward we're going. And then if it is just in the first cycle, then k would just be 0, and we would just get x equals 0 and x equals 3 pi over 2. And so writing this extra bit on, the purpose of it is to account for the fact that we could go a certain number of cycles forwards or backwards, and we would end up in the exact same spot. All right. Well, again, as always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the comment section, and we'll see you for the next one.